I'm going to ring the bells 3 times. 1 time for everything that is behind us, all life lived, all the hopes, all the fears, all the celebration, all the intensity, all the boredom, everything that has already happened. 1 time for all the unknown, everything that lies ahead of us. The possibilities, oh please not that, the wide variety of the future, all the surprises, the things that are completely new. And also things that we take forward that are known already. And 1 time for here and now, for where those 2 aspects of time meet in this very moment and in each of us, as we are, all of us, an individual expression of connecting heaven and earth, as I see it, and the physical and the spiritual. As we say in Genuine Contact, as we're all walking the spiritual path with practical feet. So if you're so inclined, you could close your eyes and listen, or have your eyes open, whatever suits you best. So I welcome us all to the story sharing circle as part of the organizational health and balance diagnosis. We are the right people to participate in this because we're the ones who came. And to transition us into this meeting, I don't know if you read it in the email, there was an invitation to bring a talking object, something that connects you with Genuine Contact, the Genuine Contact organization. And you may have brought that, and if you haven't, I invite you to look around and see if there's something that calls your attention that could function as a talking object during this meeting and also has some kind of relationship with you and the Genuine Contact organization. I can see that everyone else has muted themselves. I mean, of course, you're always free to do that. I prefer not to have everyone else muted, but to every now and then hear a breath or laughter or a sigh or some kind of, thank you. There's life out there in space. So has everyone found something in an object? Okay. So invite us to be with that object for a minute or 2 and reflect on, listen to that object. What does it tell you? But also me, what does it tell us about our connection to the Genuine Contact organization, to the Genuine Contact field? And what made us choose to be here today out of the millions of things that we could spend our time on? We have chosen to show up here. What is that? Does anybody need more time? Okay, in preparing for this meeting, I had wondered about, do we go into breakout rooms, into pairs, yes or no? And now I found out that I have Elizabeth's Zoom license and there are no breakout rooms. So we will stay together, and it feels also good with a smaller number. So whoever wants to start, just imagine we're sitting in a circle. You have your talking object in the circle in the middle, and if you feel like sharing your insights and where you add, pick the talking object and go ahead.
Well, I can start. I choose a shell. It's actually the center of a bigger shell that was broken. I think they are really beautiful. Sometimes they are like flowers. I have lots of them. I picked them up at Atlantic Beach many years ago, and many times actually, whenever I was awake early enough to get out before they were all picked by someone else. It tells me about that deep connection I have with Genuine Contact. I've been in Raleigh so many times. I've been doing those workshops over and over again, and also cooking for the other workshop participants many years, first on my own and then later together with Rachel. And it has been really, it's been such a great experience. And I learned to know so many beautiful people, and I have so many relationships around the world. Yeah, this shell, it's really beautiful, and there is a little bit some kind of growth on it. I think there are other small shells or some kind of other things that has grown on it. So it also tells that sometimes the beauty can be hidden because life comes in between, and things happen. And but then I'm really interested in going back to the core, to that beauty of the core, and I think it's this network of people that we have. It's so great that if that we could help it to grow and to thrive and to be really successful. All these people that have come through all these workshops and work with the Genuine Contact approach. Some of them are successful, some are not so successful, some have left. I mean, it's you have your own path in life. Still, I think that this organization could be so much more than it is right now. And that is why I'm here today, because I want to support that. So I put the talking object back in the center.
I could pick the talking object up, perhaps. I somehow back, and I brought something. You might recognize them, because I, for a while, since a while, I read the mail. Brings something. Of course, I will bring something. But I have a large desk, so I found something there. And yes, it's a knife and a fork, connecting to food, of course, but also I got it from participant I had many years ago, and the first time she went for a workshop in several days without her kids. I think her youngest was approx 15, so it might have been 15, 20 years since she left home by herself. And I found her crying outside the cottage the first evening. And the first workshop was really hard for her. And then next summer, she returned, and then she took all the workshops that I have had. This is not genuine contact, but it's connected to genuine contact, really. Because afterwards, and after the last workshop she attended, I had this fork and knife, and on the fork it says, there is always time. And on the knife it says, for learning and developing, for development. So it's definitely connected to genuine contact, somehow. And why I'm here, well, I really want to get back again to meet the faces of you all. And this time I'm really happy there is a face I haven't seen, I think, at least. And that's great. Depending on time and, life comes in between always. But now I think I'm back and I can open my fork and knife again, not having them crossed, but open them up and dig into whatever we can combine together as a meal somehow. So while I'm here, I'm still curious. I want to learn, and I really want this organization to make sense somehow for me as a person and also for my professional life somehow. So yeah, I will put the talking object back in the middle and look forward for coming talks.
I continue. My talking object is a piece of wood, and I once bought it as a present for my grandfather. And after he passed away, it was given back to me, and I use it in my workshops as talking object. It's not as heavy as the bells, and it's light and smooth and warm, and it's meant. It's somehow it's an object which is meant to make people who hold it comfortable, and many people in my workshop, not only genuine contact workshops, but workshops on which I use tools or WPPF. So many people have held it already. And for me, it's also a connection to my grandfather. And it's this is also something about our community. I feel connected with the community. And I'm here today because it's giving and taking. I gave this to my grandfather and he gave it back to me. So it's exchange of presents of any kind. And it's such a great organization and so very special that I would like to contribute to the further development.
Okay, then it's me. I do not know. I choose this one.
Tasty.
It's pomegranate in English.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm really shy with my English, my spoken English. Actually, I do not use it very often. So I try. And Anders, thank you. I feel very welcome by your words. And actually, I do not know really very much about Genuine Contact. I met Birgit and her husband once in Berlin when I stayed there with Marai. And I also know Christian. I think he's also connected to Genuine Contact. At another one with I choose before this stone, but when you invited us, Marai, to choose something which I felt connected with, when I'm thinking to Genuine Contact, this came in my view, and I like it much more. It's for me, it's powerful and the color is bright, and it's at the same time round and has this little bumpies, and the skin is very smooth, and I think here this is like seeds or anything, or maybe I don't know whether there's the flower maybe. And I'm really curious. I'm here because I'm in a changing condition in my life. I'm quite successful as a doctor, and I also work in coaching sessions one-to-one, and I'm deeply looking for new bases to work with. And I'm also looking for kind of, not family, but kind of community where I really feel like connected, and also where I find discoveries, and where I can give all I have to give as a person, and to be more with more people, so that we can fit our potentials together. I think synergistic, I don't know the English word.
Synergistic.
Yeah. And I'm really quite open to experience and to see and feel what is in it for me. Unfortunately, I have not the whole 3 hours, but I'm with you with my full kind presence the whole time I can be. I put the object in the middle.
Well, I will pick up, and my object is this little golden Buddha that I don't know how long ago, but a long time ago, when Birgit and Ward were working in India and doing lots of work. Their work there looked really effortless. The time difference is about 13 hours, I think, and at the end of their workday, they would send all of their materials to me. And I would be like getting started with my work at that point, and I would work all day on all of their materials, turning them magically into a report. And the next day they would go back to the client and ta-da, look at all this that magically happened in the dead of night. And it made it look like, I mean, it just was this really magical thing that was happening behind the scenes. And it, as I think you probably all know, when you do this kind of work, it sometimes takes some days to put all of those things together. But we had this system where the magic elves were working away in the middle of the night so that they had things the next morning to go. And in that time, I did lots of connecting with the people on the ground who were the sponsors of the stuff, because I was the one who organized all the things with them. And this Buddha was a gift from a woman called Anju in India, who was just an incredible resource, loved Genuine Contact, totally got what it was that they were doing within the organization. And she didn't just buy this. She actually went somewhere and hand painted it with gold paint and sent it to me as a gift in thanks for all of the work that I had done as part of this project that helped their organization move forward. And when I think about that connection to Genuine Contact, the reality is that as I go through my house, every room is filled with treasures like that. From workshop participants who brought me a little something from their country to thank me for helping them get to a maybe September intensive in Raleigh, or clients who we did meaningful work for and they wanted to send me a little something to say thank you for my parts in those things. There is something like that in every room. And so Genuine Contact is this thing that is all pervasive in my life. In the leadership transition meeting a few weeks ago, somebody, I think it was that meeting, somebody said like, Genuine Contact is Rachel's mother tongue. And I'd never heard it put that way before, but it was like, yeah, in every fiber of my being, it's here. And everywhere I look, it's here. And everything I do, here it is. And so when I think about why I'm here, it's because I'm so connected in every way to Genuine Contact, and it means so much to me. And the only way that it will keep growing and moving forward in the world is if people who have passion like mine keep showing up. So I'm here, and I'm here after what feels like a really long step away. So that's also this reminder of this faith in what Genuine Contact is for me and is in the world as this entity of its own that has its own life force and its own energy that attracts us to be a part of it. And it's so important for me right now to be stepping into that. And I have some ideas about why, but I suspect also this will be one of those times in my life that I look back on with much greater hindsight clarity about why it's so important. And with that, I'll put my object back.
How beautiful to listen to all of you. One thing I realized, we're so used to being in a circle where we all know each other that there is no, hi, I'm Mariah from Germany. So I wonder if we do that a little later again for this one new face in the circle, and also for those who might listen in. I brought this, and Rachel, you will be able, was it Aaron who did this, or yeah? Is he your younger brother? Is he your like direct brother, or?
He's the youngest of all of us. Yeah.
Of all of you. Okay. So I have this since the Summer Academy in Switzerland. It was the first one that Birgit and Ward brought over, a representation of a symbol that I can't even describe, that Dela also uses, and that somewhat represents the general contact field, but it's not something that is like generally used by all of us. And it's handmade, craftsman, geschmiedet. What is the word? Like, what is the specific?
It's blacksmithed.
Blacksmith, yes.
Yeah.
And when I sat with this object, it was beautiful. Like, touch it. There was it's both. It's round, but it's also edgy. There's weight to it. There's space to it. It's a very natural. It's both a natural material, that's how it's felt, and it has very clearly been crafted by man. And all of these qualities for me fit very well with how I perceive the general contact approach, that merging of natural and also human spirit and intention in it. And a craft, there's an art, it's a craft to be working this way. And at the same time, this is not perfect. There's no perfection being sought after. And as I held it in my hand, I could feel like how much love went in here, both in the making of this one object and also very much into the whole approach, and all the ingredients of that was so strong, so loving, and a strong love. And then I sat with this object, and to me, holding it in my hand, it's like a being, right, with arms and legs and head. And I looked at it and wondered about, yes, so why exactly am I here? And I heard this, what this is represented by, just like, this is where you belong. You know, this is where I belong. And it's very beautiful to belong. I've been on a long quest and search for belonging and having the experience that truthfully being me and belonging can go together. As I sit with this object, it didn't feel like I'm choosing to be here, but this is like, it's not a question of choice. It's like a following what is natural. And I've also been away for a while. I've left the co-owners group, and Anders, when I saw that you had signed up, so I saw you today, I was especially happy because when I look at the co-owners page of the General Contact Net webpage, there's a picture, as far as I remember, where you're also there and were we together at the Summer Academy. And I had seen that your picture wasn't in the list of the co-owners anymore, and I don't know anything about it, and that's fine. It's just you're back to one of these meetings, and I'm feeling very happy about that. And I'm also feeling very happy to see Imke here, who is a dear friend of many years. And besides what you shared, I know you also learned quite a bit about the general contact work just through us, how we're meeting, what we're working on, and we're working on a project together that, if it comes into life, is also going to have general contact ingredients. And I followed this crazy intent. Just yesterday when we were talking, we were out for a walk. I suddenly came to inviting Imke, and I was like, is that okay? She's not like an official whatever professional and so on, and can't bring 5 stories out of the last 10 years for the organization. But that's not needed. It just felt so right to say, if you have energy for this, if you feel drawn, please come. So I'm happy for you that you've come for however long is right for you. So with this, I give my talking object back to the middle, and I know that all of us have now spoken as a transfer in, and it could be that after hearing everybody, one of us wants just to share an insight or something that came up additionally. So please, if that's the case, go ahead.
I just started thinking about all the times I've been to Birgit and Ward, and all the people that has come through there, and all the people that has come through in other places, other workshops, and all the memories from these years. It's the first time when I went to Birgit and Ward's place in Raleigh was when the flight started to go again after 9/11. It was on September 17 that year. And it was so in the middle of a crisis. That was the first time ever that I flew to the United States. And it's been so many times after that. And so I was just thinking, all these people, and somehow we are connected. We have some kind of energy grid because so many people have been there and brought their stones from their harmony circle and added it, adding it to their own circle or somewhere where they live. And then we have all these connections. I love that map that you did, Rachel, the other day. And I just thought, oh, what if we could draw all these and visualize all these connections between people also, not only the countries, but between people. Then we would see how many we actually are. It's because it's not one or two, or I mean, it's 130 or more trainers, and now we have, I think, 9 more in on their way this week in the Netherlands, and yeah, and all the professionals and all those who are somehow connected because they have been through 1 or 2 of the workshops or worked with it in their organization together with a trainer or a GC professional. It's there's a huge amount of people that is connected to this program one way or the other, and it would be so interesting if it could be visualized so we could actually see it. Yeah, that's my thoughts right now. So I'm putting this talking object back in the center.
I pick it up, and before you started speaking, Eivor, I'd been wondering before, and I didn't get clear guidance to do hopes and fears for the story sharing circle or not. And as you started speaking, to me it was like, this is almost like a transition into the story sharing when you took us back to 1999, right? Was that year?
2001 was the first Train the Trainer.
strange. That's what I thought, but I somewhat thought. Okay. However, I don't need to explain it. So I want to ask you for your guidance. I have a sense that we could transition into the story circle, and I'm unclear if hopes and fears would be beneficial.
I would like to mention a fear because it came to my mind when you asked the question, and the fear is that I don't remember a story because I'm a bit under stress in these days, and then my memory doesn't work well, and well, I thought, oh, maybe it's the wrong meeting, but then I noticed that it's also good to have someone here to listen to stories. So just in case I don't remember one, I will. Yes, I'm here to listen. So
Beautiful.
that was my fear.
Let's keep going with hopes and fears. It feels it's right to open the space for that. Thank you, Christiane. I noticed I had a fear tuning into the meeting beforehand, and that was, could there be, are there painful stories, and then going back would be an energy drain instead of okay, listen to him and let it go. And I have a desire to stick with this, yay, there's so much potential going forward. And at the same time, I notice that if something isn't fully integrated and acknowledged and taken with us, it can kind of implode later on. So my hope is to have a sense after the story sharing circle of, oh, that was good. Wow. There's more energy available now. And some important puzzle pieces became clear or visible or accessible now for the process we are in right now. Any other hopes or fears?
My hope is that that we are energized afterwards. Now that as Rachel took over, I feel that well, somehow you create momentum. A lot of things happen, and yeah, and my hope is that this meeting will contribute to that.
I have a hope that builds a little bit on Marai's hope and fear, which is that there is real, authentic space and opportunity for some of those mads and sad stories to be told too, in a way that still allows for that feeling of being energized and feeling of being open for moving forward when we're done. It's something that I have this consciousness of in this community where we do lots of like public happy stories, and then the more negative stuff happens behind the scenes, and that's not the healthiest approach. So I'm looking forward today to having the space for all of it to fully be present, maybe for the first time in a long time.
I could add another hope, building on what you all said, of course, but also to find, I worked together with Eivor since almost the same time as you went to USA for the first time. Not in general contact, but other ways. So I'm still curious about the history of what have happened. I know some parts where I've been part. I know some parts through Eivor, and I look forward to hear some parts from other perspectives as well. Because I think knowing more about the history makes me more comfortable when talking about what genuine contact is, not just from my own perspective or my closest colleagues or friends, but also the full potential strength of the network all around the globe. So I look forward to hear both the great stories, but also the ones that was not so perfect. So yeah, that's a hope for tonight.
So it could be that the sharing of our hopes and fears is complete. And it could also be that someone is still going inside, sensing, looking for something that's bubbling up. So just to give that the space it needs, I will leave the talking object in the middle for a moment longer. And as you all know, this is never meant for any of us to be uncomfortable with silence, but just to know that we honor that sometimes deeper wisdom needs a longer way to come up. Ooh. Okay, I almost had a computer earthquake here. Well, does anyone need a bio break before we go into is it a yes?
I would love a one-purpose break, yes.
Very good. So let's maybe even open the window, stretch, some fresh air, and come back in 5 minutes.
Are you posting the recording?
I will pause the recording. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Welcome back from our break. I've just started the recording again. I will now put a light in the middle of our circle, which you can't see because I don't have a second computer. I loved what you did, Rachel. We had the story sharing for Chris Weaver. I would like to do this such that we circle the object 3 times, 2 times in one direction, then 1 time back, and then leave it in the middle to just see if there's more coming. And when the object arrives with you, it doesn't mean that you need to say something in that moment. It's a possibility to go inside and listen. Is there a story now that wants to be shared? Is there a story that is just forming? Maybe you were reminded of something. Maybe in our transitioning in, you already have like 5 stories piled up that you now have to choose which one to share. So we're going to go in the order of how we arrived here. So to my left, there's Eivor. And then I think Imke came in. right? All right.
Maybe Rachel was there.
Maybe Rachel. Okay. So there's Eivor and Rachel and Imke and Christiane and Anders. So you know that the object is going to circle around, and you have the opportunity to receive that object several times. And in that very moment, just check in. Are you moved to share? And it may be, as Rachel already said, it may be a sad story. It may be a glad story. It may be a sad story. A mix of all of those, like life in all its shades. All of this is welcome. And I notice I'm keeping my genuine contact object to me, and I'm going to use something different as my talking object to pass around. I wonder what it morphs into on your side. On my side, it's this beautiful elephant. Very smooth in the hand. So in a moment, I'm going to pass this object over to you, Eivor. Yes. And the rest of all of us, so this is a story sharing. Mostly it's a story listening circle, because actually there's more listening happening than speaking. So Christian, you spoke about that possibility to giving the gift of being a listener, and I think that's a great gift. So we all have the opportunity to listen with our hearts, with our mind, with our soul, with our whole being. Over to you, Eivor.
It arrived as an angel, and it says protected by angels, and I really think we are. So this was good. I've been looking at that for a while, because I moved into another space where it was not so dark as it was where I sat earlier, and I have been thinking about. I have so many stories, and most of them are quite personal. And I was thinking about what is important to share, to learn to know about this organization that we have. And so I'm still thinking that this first meeting, the first workshop for Train the Trainers, is an important start of that. The Genuine Contact started much earlier, because Birgit had worked with it, and she had taught it to so many people. But then in 2001, on September 17, right after that the flights happened to start flying into the US again after the disaster in New York, then we arrived, 17 people, to do Train the Trainer with Birgit, who during this catastrophe was in London, I think, and couldn't get home. So she arrived home just a few days before us. And we were staying on that farm in Raleigh, and we slept on air beds. I remember that I slept in Ward's office, and I didn't realize why I was so cold at night until I found out that, of course, there's this air condition, and it comes up from the floor. And I had my air mattress right on that one, so every night it pumped cold air into my air mattress, and I was freezing from inside. So that was kind of a culture shock, because we don't have air conditioning here, not much anyway. And I think that why it's important is that because we stayed in these conditions, I mean, we were, I was in a mobile home, and there were 4 people, I think, sleeping on the floor in the living room, and then there was a bedroom with 2 or 3 people sleeping on their mattresses, and I in the office. And there were in the offices in the main house, there were people sleeping on the floor. And but it was like a camp. And it continued like being a camp for a few years until it grew, so it was too much to handle. I think that when you meet with people from around the world, and then you stay under those conditions, and then you are taught something, and you learn something that is deeply changing, and you know that you have to follow that path, because it's sort of so connected in your heart, and you're so hooked onto it that you can't leave right now. It will take whatever, but you have to stay on that path. That is, I think that is what have connected us somehow so deeply. Not all are so deeply connected of those people that came, but many enough, I would say, that stayed with it. And so I think I mean, doing workshops like that, having people live like in a camp for a few days, that really, I think, was a great start for this network, and for this organization, and for this whole thing to grow. Yeah, and for me it meant that I really felt that I needed to come back. I knew I wouldn't make it on my own. I was in a separation process, and I was changing my job at home, and everything was like upside down. And there I was on the porch sitting together with Ward, and he told me about other dimensions and energy, how that flows through the world, and I was totally lost. He was like taking the mat out from my feet, so under my feet. So yeah, I knew I had to come back. So that's why I found out, together with Birgit, a way to do that for many times. So that was how I remember the start of with the Train the Trainer, the first one, with 17 people. So, and now Rachel went away. I was going to send the object to her. She didn't want it, obviously. So, see if she comes back.
Yeah.
Who was next in turn? That was, I think, yeah. Okay. I'm sending the object to you then.
It's a matter of fact that I can't tell any story about the beginning or anything really. So I would prefer to be a listener this time, to get a feeling and know more about the storytelling. So which one is next?
I think Christiane is next.
Yeah,
Give it
I'm
to
next.
you.
Thank you. Well, your story about the camp, Eivor, reminded me of my Train the Trainer in Raleigh. I'm not sure whether it was 2005 or 2007. And I shared my room with Eva, and my bed was also on the floor. And what impressed me most it was a beautiful workshop, and there was a mentoring circle afterwards. And what impressed me most was the freedom that I felt. So I had decided not only to participate in the Train the Trainer, but I also wanted to travel around. And so I had to make up my mind whether to stay for the mentoring circle or to go to the, what was it? Is it Smoky Mountains over there? I'm not so sure. So I had hiked a car. It was really amazing how Birgit and Ward, how they dealt with it. So I didn't feel any pressure whether to stay or to leave. I was just free to make my decision, and I felt however I decide is okay. And so I stayed for a part of the mentoring circle. And from a trainer's or facilitator's view, I don't want my participants to leave. I want them to stay and or either stay or leave, but not leave in the middle of the workshop of the whatever. And but I did, and it was okay. And so I learned that Birgit and Ward, that they really walk their talk, and this was great. And I experienced for several times now, and I don't know anybody who lives there, who walks their talk as they do. And well, we all try and we all practice and we succeed in doing this, but I think this is special about, and this is also special about the community. They build it into the structure, this freedom. And this is different than anything else that I know. So I hand the talking object over to you, Anders.
Thank you. I will take the object and keep it on my desk. It's great to hear the stories from Raleigh. I haven't been there yet. Who knows? I have met with Genuine Contact people a couple of times, both in online meetings and in the mentoring circle in Salzburg. And it doesn't matter if we meet online or in real life, it's a very warm feeling that I really appreciate. It's not that often that you come into a group of people, and it doesn't matter that you are there for the first time with all new people, or if you have been there for several times and know most of the people, the feelings still are that you're welcome. You happen to be here right now, so you're right. That's really easy. And yeah, structured but not structured. That's the way I like to live my life and to work as well. Some guidelines, yeah, probably needed. Some direction, great to have. Otherwise, quite free to move, sometimes sideways, sometimes ahead, and sometimes going a little step backwards. And this is what I feel when I'm stepping into the Genuine Contact, trying to find the spirit of it and why I like the way of working and the approach to private life, professional life, nature, whatever. It's the simplicity on the surface. It's not so simple behind, but the surface it looks simple, and I like simplicity. So yeah, different story. I will pass the talking object to you, Marai, I think. Comes here.
Thank you. It's beautiful to go way back. So from what you shared, Eivor, I'm also inclined to share something from the very beginnings. And just a side note, Imke, you cannot speak about the General Contact Organization, but if there's anything that you would like to share about your own first meeting with this work, that's also very welcome. My Train the Trainer and Christiane, I think we were in the same, it was in 2005. I had created for myself the opportunity for quite a dramatic love affair with a man in New York City. I thought I would leave Germany and get married in New York. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Welcome back. I have the talking
My
object.
computer just restarted, so here I am.
We're still in the first circle, and I will continue. I just begun, and then you're the next, last one in the first round. So I thought I leave for New York, and I leave Germany, and I get married there, and so on, and went over just for 2 months, just to try out how it's going to be with us. And very soon it became clear, oh no, it's quite messy. Still, we went together to Halifax, to the World Open Space on Open Space, and afterwards there was Path to Organizational Health and Balance and Health and Balance in Organizations with Birgit and Ward. And I saw them working together, being grounded, being aligned, knowing, seemingly knowing what they were standing up for, and being quite contained. And I was pretty much all over the place in this this drama relationship. The workshop was beautiful. I think it could still be good for me to review it because there was so much else going on. Then I went back to New York and tried to figure out what to do. And I had heard that they were doing cross-cultural conflict resolution in Raleigh. So I reached out to back home and asked my mom if I could borrow the money for that workshop. And I wrote to Birgit saying, I have a lot of cross-cultural conflict going on right now in my private life. Could I come and take the workshop? And she said yes. And she also said, as you're already coming here, why don't you do Train the Trainer while you're there? Anyway, I had done the other modules before, and I hadn't even considered that, and it seemed to make sense. So as I didn't have the money to pay it, she said, you pay whenever, later, that's fine. And so I came and did both cross-cultural conflict and the Train the Trainer, and felt held and nurtured and soothed and safe. My heart was quite wounded after what I had experienced before. And I didn't do the Train the Trainer with the desire I will go back and do workshops later. I thought at some point later that suddenly that came up, but I've never done any proper General Contact Program workshops since, and it seems to me like I will never do that. We had such an amazing, inspiring time, and Eivor, you were there, and also Robert and some other people, and we had this. I remember sitting under the pine trees, and I had this vision of this international consultancy that would come out of this field, and I would be part of that, and we would be doing international projects, and it seemed so close. It seemed like I could almost touch it, and it was. And I'm learning through life that sometimes these creations seem so close, and they are alive, and then they take 20 years or 15. So it seems we're now much closer to that than back then. And all the time I had this calling, that's what I really want with me. I went back to Germany, and I've been at the Genuine Contact Mentoring Circle the year before, as a regular member, or at the beginning of 2005, and then I went there to 2006, now I get to be in the trainer circle. The trainers met one day before. Oh, I'm going to be with all these beautiful colleagues, and it's going to be so great. It's like my family, and I felt so connected in Raleigh. And then I entered the first German trainer meeting, and it was one of the worst meetings ever. No genuine contact, real. Going into it everything was quick, and there was hidden conflict, something with the German webpage, and it was so messy, and was confronted with this the sense of what the essence of this is, and how is it right now translated into everyday life. And there was such a huge distance or discrepancy. Does that word exist in English? That was my start. So big disappointment in some way, and still I was so enthusiastic that back then I said, okay, I pick up and I contribute to the German webpage, and I spend months together with Jutta to try to get that webpage online, which we eventually did. It's beautiful to share and connect with this very early knowing of what this all can be. And I pass over to Rachel.
Thank you. I didn't come here with stories today that I I have to share these ones. I still at this moment I'm not entirely sure. So I was listening yesterday a little bit to the recording of the storytelling from the 10th anniversary party. And I was listening to it because at some time over the next couple of days, Doris and Thomas and Anna Carolina are leading a Train the Trainer right now, and they're actually going to have a viewing party because somebody turned that into a video with some pictures as a way of introducing some of the history of Genuine Contact to these new trainers. And in that moment, I laughed a little bit because I don't know how many of you were there. Eivor, I know you were because I saw the pictures. But one of the things that happened in that time, we had lots of people, 30 people or something, were at the mentoring circle that year. And so we rented a tent and we put it in the yard in front of Ray's house in the grassy pasture. And when we rented the tent, we made some assumptions about it, including things like that it would have walls in case we needed them for the weather, especially with the price we paid for it. And it didn't have those. And as happens from time to time in North Carolina, there was a hurricane blowing through one day. And there's this really great clip of video, and I'm talking, and there's not enough of what I'm saying to actually understand what the context is of what I'm saying. But whoever it was made this video just so that you could get a sense of the rain and the wind and the weather that was coming down around us. And somehow miraculously, Ward and some other people who were there, and I couldn't even tell you who helped at this point, but they fashioned walls out of tarps and things that got scavenged from all over the farm so that we could at least be relatively dry in there. And if I think back on that time, I remember how loud that storm was. But what was remarkable to me is that almost all of the pictures from those days are of these really bright, sunny, gorgeous days that came before and after that little bit of storm. Other than that video clip, there is nothing to indicate that there was a hurricane blowing through in that time. So it must have blown through relatively quickly, because all the other days were gorgeous and sunny and, you know, often not even a cloud in the sky. And I think about life like that. Like, when I think about the story of Genuine Contact, there's lots of really great, powerful, fun, bright, sunny, joyful story. And sometimes we can get caught up in remembering the rainstorms. So it was this really great metaphor for me in my story of Genuine Contact, but also in my story of life, to really remember just how much of that bright and sunniness is going on around it all. And then that got me thinking about how much of our story almost in some ways seems to happen before. They're the stories of how we came into Genuine Contact. They're the stories of the way things were when we were in trainings together. They're the stories of things that happened not yesterday or last week, but maybe last year or 5 years ago or 20 years ago. 20 years. Birgit and I were talking the other day about the fact that next year I will have been working in Genuine Contact for 20 years. I don't feel old enough to be able to say that, but there it is. And how much I have hunger for the story since then. So I'm going to pass it on and hope to hear some of those more current stories too.
So I think the order will be that you either pass it to me and I pass it to Ava, but I'm also aware of, Imke, that you said you might leave soon. So,
Yeah.
so I ask you to just kind of give a sign before you need to leave so that you can share either just a closing comment or a little story, so, and not just drop out silently.
Oh, lovely. Yes, I have to leave very soon. So, really just came a story in my mind when we worked together. I think you remember when we stay in Hamburg, and I went to the wheel with my husband actually, and I'm kind of in between this spiritual stuff. So I have got a deep sense of connection to everything in nature and absolutely believe in bigger force and the universe, but also a bit skeptical, like this kind of ooh and awe about it. And when Mariah arrived with this kind of carpet, I'm a little bit and but I've got such a deep connection to Mariah also, and I'm deep kind of confidence that everything would be really great to me. And what I really love, I love things where I have no chance to get in my mind and think about anything and discuss everything and lose time to find the real essence of what is important now. And so I went at the carpet and I at once felt everything at the center. And then the next step just arrived and we went there and I just jumping like I don't know anything. And I was so touched by this spontaneous kind of reaction and deep feelings and exactly knowing what I feel at the space where I went to, and that sometimes it feels so different to what I thought about what I would feel when I go to that place. And so, yeah, I've got like a deep trust to this kind of work. So I work with my hands, and there's also this kind of, I'm touched with the truth, and I can be really sure this is the next step to do or believe. That's something I really like about, and thank you so much that I have the opportunity to stay with you all and just have a small idea. And I'm really interested to know more about the work you are all doing.
Thank you for visiting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Yeah.
So now for the second circle, we are mixed again. It's funny. And I think the talking object goes over to Eva again.
Well, thank you. I have been thinking about whether or not it's important to talk about those rainstorms that Rachel mentioned. And I think there is one that might shed some light on the financial situation we have now in the organization. And then I'm thinking back to, I think it was 2006 that we started the organization, and we had this mentoring circle, and all the trainers were invited as co-owners, and there were some of us that said yes. And then we needed to find a way to find the money to provide for the resources and the website, and yeah, I think that was the most important things at that time. Maybe some other stuff too, and we talked about the program director role also, and we needed to find a way to talk about that. And it was like as soon as money came into the mix, something shifted. It was some people had a difficulty to talk about it. Some were afraid that we would leave people outside. Others were sort of almost offended, I think, when we thought that they would not be able to pay a fee because they came from a certain country. And yeah, there were all these kind of things. There were so many sort of emotions coming up to the surface. And I think there were both like this cultural mix, that because when we are we're so grown into our cultures that we don't even see the layer that the cultural layer that we put on. So I think that was part of it. And well, I don't need to analyze why it happened, but there was, I think, some hard words and some tears, and we couldn't even decide. Yeah, we decided that everyone would pay a fee that was equal to their the pay they got for one day of work, and that they could themselves decide for it. And if they couldn't pay that, then they could do some kind of work to fill in what they couldn't pay. And that's the what you call it, no. Sometimes when I speak English, I lose the word in both languages. So it's like when you have some parties that need to agree and you come to some kind of solution that is in between, and it's not good for everyone, for anyone, actually.
Compromise?
Compromise, yeah. That's so we came to agreement on this kind of compromise. And I remember that because, yeah, I remember so well. We were sitting outside. I think you presented the this suggestion, Rachel, and it was hard on you. And we had someone facilitating that was facilitating in a very smooth and very nice way and didn't hold steady. So Birgit had to quickly move in and save the situation, I think. It was a difficult time, and it was also a real shift, because I remember some people said, I don't know if it was only one person I heard or if there were more of us, that said, oh, I used to come here and it was such a great time. I could be at the mentoring circle. I could just play around and learn things, have fun with friends. And now suddenly it's serious. And I don't know if I like it that way. And so, yeah, that's what I remember from that mentoring circle. And I think it could have some implications today too. This difficulty to talk about money and in numbers. Because I also remember when I wanted to talk about abundance in the form of money at the mentoring circle in Salzburg. And when I said, okay, so what about money? And people looked at me as if I had fallen down from the moon and said, what? What does that have to do with abundance? And so, yeah, so I think it might have implications today too. So that's why I think it's important to think about that story and what it tells about each one of us, if anything, and how to handle those things, maybe. So that's the rain shower. And of course it ends quite quickly. And so I sent the talking object back to Rachel, actually, because you weren't on after me.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that was an intense decision making. It was also the first year that we used 5-fold, because Chris had come and said, hey, I got this cool thing. What do you think? So it was that it was a learning by fire about how tightly facilitated 5-fold really needs to be done well. That's one of the things I remember about that. And also, yes, that intervention moment of like, this conversation isn't working and we need to shift it. And yet we got there. And even if we got there in a way that was a bit intense, it was also a model that served us really well. until 2014. So really for 8 years, it was a really viable, abundant model that allowed lots of really great work to happen. So that's the end part of that story, that, right? That's the rainbow after the rain shower, is it was really viable and really vibrant for a long time. And I have faith that whatever emerges from now will be another rainbow too. I think about my own kind of path with Genuine Contact, and some of it, of course, starts from a very young age, because it was part of our way of being and part of our way of growing up in our family. I was 13 the first time I went to an open space technology meeting, so it really has been part of my life for a long time. And things just kind of went along, and I became program director first for DALAR. And then when the co-ownership model shifted, part of that was the decision to keep me on as the program director to keep things going. Because for the years before that, Birgit and Ward had been putting somewhere between 20 and 30,000 US dollars a year into the development and maintenance and everything of the program, on top of all of the time that they had been working, right, mentoring people and all of those things. And so it was a good way to continue in that. By the time we got to 2010 actually, when I looked at it, it was 2010 when I finally stepped back and passed on the program director role to Ayeshka. And that year for me was from September 2010 until September 2011 was one of the hardest years I have ever had. In all the challenges that there have been and all the different roles I've had as part of this community, that year was the hardest one, because I had spent all of these years being so connected to so many people around the world, talking and meeting and emailing and like, I mean, to do that program director job well, really honestly is more like 20 hours a week, not 20 hours a month. And I often did more than that. So I spent a lot of time in relationship with people. And then I hung up my program director hat and discovered that that relationship was with the program director role and not with me as a human being. Because in that year, after I stepped down, I didn't have one conversation with a person in the Genuine Contact community outside of our list. Not one. And it was such an important lesson for me as a leader, because leadership is lonely. Because people do have that relationship with you in your leadership role, not with you as a human being. It's different than, colleagues who get together and have a dinner or drinks or whatever after work and other things where they form friendship around it. And I think it was a really vital and important lesson in my own life, because I had assumed that that relationship was a person-to-person relationship, not a role-to-role relationship. And I'm grateful for it, because as I step back into this program director role, I have much greater maturity and clarity about that. So although that year was really hard because it was so lonely, it was a vital learning lesson. And I think it will make me a stronger program director this time around. And it also makes me think about, in our organization, how we need to intentionally care for those relationships. Even in this story sharing circle, we've heard about that sense of belonging and that sense of community and how important that is. And how do we maintain that in a way that helps, that is actually supportive of each of us as individuals belonging in this organization in a way that's real and based in reality and not in assumptions about what this community is. Because I think that there's also lots of stories about people having either passion or pain because of their assumptions around community. So I have lots of thoughts and awareness about that in the present, in my present role, in this process of looking at our organizational diagnosis, looking at our strategic plan, how we care for and nurture relationship in the right way, so that it's just all really good and that we're building relationship that's really real. Yeah, so that's my story for this moment. And I know that Imco had been after me, but I don't know who is now. So I'm going to pass the object on and hope that someone will pick it up.
I think it's me, but I don't have a story right now. No. I give the object, hand it over to you, Anders.
Thank you. I don't know if it's a story or if it's just I hear myself somewhere. Okay. It's connected both to Rachel's and does everyone have a story inside the computer? Thank you. That's better. All right, that's a thunder. Anyway, when we were in Salzburg, we had it was the mentoring circle, and we had a kind of meeting with the community as mentoring circle, but we also had a meeting with the co-owners, when the co-owners were in the center and the community was sitting around. We had some kind of, I don't remember the subject, but we have a discussion of some kind, and co-owners had the opportunity to make some kind of decisions. Community could come with inputs, and yeah, it works quite fine. But also, Marai, you had noticed that I had stepped down from being a co-owner, and it's not because I lack of patience or believe in the program. It's because of responsibility, and it goes back to finance in a way. Because if I step up as a co-owner, which we do, as far as I remember, we don't have any written agreement what the co-owner is. I don't have a share or whatever in the what I'm paying for. And if I am a co-owner, I am also responsible for what happens in the organization. If the organization or the PD sends us a bill larger than the amount of money we do have in the organization to pay that bill, I am somehow responsible for it. So that is why I have stepped down, and I feel comfortable to stepping down from the responsibility part, but I don't feel comfortable to not bring in anything to the organization, but I can still use all the tools, everything on the drive. That's great, but it's totally for free. And from my point of view, whatever is free, that's great. But what you can get for free also has no value. And there is a great value within the program, within the things that are for years saved on the drive. And that's really, really important. So for now, I'm comfortable having stepped down as co-owner because I don't have the opportunity to put in time or knowledge or whatever needed to fill as a co-owner. But I'm not comfortable not bringing in some money into the organization because I know, and that's not a new situation. 2 years ago, we had, as co-owners, we put in some extra money just to have money enough to come to the next new year. And then we go out, think that people will stay as co-owners. We don't know how much money they will bring. We can't make plans. And for now, as far as I read the email from Rachel, we don't have money to pay Rachel's time. So from my perspective, we need to find a model where we have more people paying less money on a regular basis. And I think it would give some ease for the organization to grow, to make branding, and to also find the platform to great meetings, to great discussions. Because we don't have to look at each other thinking, that guy is paying a lot of money coming from Sweden. That guy is not paying a lot of money because he's coming from some country in Africa or Southern America where we believe that people don't have money. So somehow I want us to find a way to bring more people into the organization paying a small fee, which will give the opportunity for however we will be driving the process in future with a PD or some kind of board or whatever, but we have to find a way of financing. So this is maybe not a story, but I think it's important for the future, and future comes from stories and from the history. So yeah, and we have some thunder during this this small story sharing. So I will pass on my talking stick to Marai, I think. Yes, comes here. We miss your voice, Marai.
So maybe there's something with my mic. You can hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I just said the sun went down and then now I'm sitting in the red light district and I'm not fully comfortable. I just want to turn on the light a little more and then I will share. So I'm grateful that we have a round of hurricane, rain, and also drought in terms of money. And I've been sitting here listening and contemplating on what might be my appropriate contribution. And I feel a lot of sadness right now. And that sadness is probably coming from this, what I left my last story with, this discrepancy between beautiful, deep essence of what my sense is, what this work stands for, beautiful experiences, for example, in coaching Imke and her husband in coaching a team, in a business team, a leadership team, and different kinds of work that I've done. So I have a lot of joy around work that I've done with Genuine Contact in terms of what happened there. And I also have a lot of memories of aspiring to something beautiful and big, and having it in the end really be small or challenging financially. So, for example, the model that we have with the mentoring circle in Germany, I love these ideas of the mentoring circles where people can come and step into the community, and as you said, I don't remember, was it Ava or Rachel, like just come and play and share and learn and all of that. And I've been at the German mentoring circle for sure 10 years in a row, maybe 11. And in that time, I've facilitated or co-facilitated that meeting 3 times. Putting a lot of work, partly, sometimes really quite some work into prep meetings and then facilitating. And I know at the first meetings, I've always paid my hotel, my stay, my journey, even my share of the costs for the room and the meals. And now when I look at these mentoring circles and how I haven't noticed in time that it actually didn't feel unbalanced. Like the wholehearted giving, and then the expectation everyone else would be like as wholeheartedly and joyfully giving of their energy in whatever way that was available, and they didn't. And this year I'm not drawn to go to the German mentoring circle because my sense is that it's actually not really a Genuine Contact mentoring circle anymore, but it has turned into a beautiful mentoring circle done the Genuine Contact way, where people who are close with Genuine Contact, but also people who are not close with Genuine Contact and who haven't given much to it come for an enormously small fee, just share of costs. Great learning and sharing with colleagues for 2 days, and because this Genuine Contact way of being and working has become so like the most natural thing for me, I think I'm just learning to really appreciate the value. This, you're welcome. And not just the words, you're welcome, like everyone can write that up on a flip chart, but this real, everything that happens shows that you're welcome in who you are, what you bring, how long you stay, when you leave, this congruency, this walking the talk. And that's quite for me, I can say that's been quite a practice of training my heart muscle to be able to hold that kind of space. And I'm learning that many people don't know all that goes in there, and it's not even necessarily their fault. They just can't see it, all that's going on, all the prep work energetically. So sometimes when I facilitate a meeting, I notice like days before I start kind of picking up the energy of the circle of what's going on and working with that in myself. And then for someone outside, it seems like, oh, you were here for 3 hours. And what I did was so much more. And have an enormous desire to learn to communicate that in a way that that those who benefit from this work really wholeheartedly say, wow, this is so cool, and I want to create an energetic balance, and what I have available is money, and whoops, here it is. So also people using resources like, oh yeah, there's some documents on the Google Drive. Like who has any idea of what's happening there back office wise, like how many hours, how much love, energy, caring, and so on goes in there. It's often so hard to see from outside. So I know that my pain is partly fueled from my own not knowing, not understanding, not being able to communicate the value, and not self-honoring, and kind of creating like I give, and then of course you will also give, but that's not free giving. that's like there are ties to it, you know, and then if someone else doesn't give wholeheartedly with the same spirit, then I'm disappointed, and that's not a business relationship. That's a different kind of, can even be an entanglement. So I look forward to getting into full transparency around money, to making it a subject that we are as ready and able to speak about and integrate in our work as spirit guides, you know, something. When Birgit for the first time said, oh, there's an empty chair in the circle, I wonder who's sitting there. Okay, that was in 2004, very new to me. I believe, and that's the last sentence, I believe it's necessary to be really transparent about money, and to also say, I'm a co-owner and this is what I'm paying. And I don't need to be ashamed for if it's less than someone else. I don't need to be proud for if it's more than someone else, but not to have it hidden. Like, oh, this is the total amount, and we don't speak about like what the variety of those contributions are, but to dare to say, this is the financial income, this is the financial outcome. I'd love to experience it. Changing to facilitator, I had suggested that we do 2 circles in 1 round, and then 1 circle the other way around. And I'm wondering if another short 1 purpose break would be appropriate. Anyone wanting that? I would love one. Like, just
I would love another cup of tea, so I will happily take a 1 purpose break.
Okay. So see you in 3 to 5 minutes. I stopped the recording. So I welcome us all back through our 3rd round in our story sharing circle. And this time the talking object is gonna go around in the other direction, meaning that in a moment I'll be passing it on to you, Anders. And looking at the time, my sense is that we will have this 1 round and then the closing, and yeah, that's what it's going to be. So I invite us for take a short moment to again deep breathe and maybe even close our eyes and connect to both, to connect to ourselves individually, to the 5 of us in the circle, to the larger community around us, so many that we know of, that we don't know of, that we are connected with, who are in some way already working with the genuine contact approach, longing for it, not knowing it yet, sensing there must be something better than what I know, and also with the essence of this program, this field. And to have all of that inform us regarding what the next story is that we wish to share. And I believe we can remember stories from the past, and we can also kind of remember stories from the future. So whatever the story is that you remember or dream in this last round, you're welcome to share it and bring it into our field. So I pass over to you, Anders.
I was kind of afraid that you should. Yeah. Stories from future. There will be great stories because of the history and because of us as community. I don't have a great story yet. I don't have a story at all. But somehow my belief is that we will strive on in a way. We will continue work the way we do. And for myself, it is yes, walking your path, of course, but also to work with some kind of subjects that you're passionate for, and also with people that gives energy or co-creates energy, not draining energy. And this is becoming more and more important to me to somehow find a way to find the grid and to fill it with grit in a way, to actually have the faith in process, have the faith in future, and let time do the hard work. You can't sit just on the full back, of course you can't, but in a way, if you have faith in process and you have enough faith in the process, you will also give time. And together with time, I think we will succeed, both as professionals and as a community. And maybe we have put in enough with time, so maybe it's time to take the step somehow to bring out we have the new logo, great. We have parts of a new webpage that's really, really great. Maybe it's time for us to really step up and bring it out to the world, not just the couple of hundreds or maybe 1,000 that are close involved into the GC way of thinking, to somehow bring it out, to be written about, to be talked about. I think it's important, and I think it's time for us to, especially for you guys who have been in this from the teenage and forward, but it's time to have some kind of harvesting. And I look forward to that harvesting time, and I will be part of it. That's why I'm here today. So that's kind of a story from future, where we have succeeded and we have filled our barrels with whatever we have harvested. So I would pass on the talking object to, is it Christiana? Yes, it is.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, my story from the future is about having a lot of face-to-face interaction and meetings. Because a lot of joy, which is connected to genuine contact for me, comes from face-to-face meetings, mentoring circles and trainings, but also private meetings like Isabella's 50th birthday, or whenever somebody from our community has to stop in Frankfurt, they come and stay here overnight, and we have great time together. Or when I'm in Berlin, we meet, and yeah, I see that I will have much more contact like this, and I also feel it's a good opportunity to invite others to make contact with genuine contact with others, and invite them into our community. Yeah. And I give the talking object to you, Ava. What?
Well, I think it was Rachel actually. Do you want to go first, Rachel?
Sure. My future story is very much connected to my present story, which is in the recent weeks, stepping back into this program director role, getting reacquainted with all those things in the back end, and what is there and what is not, and what has changed. And it was so important to me. I spent, I think, about 8 hours updating all of the participant information on the weekend, because I so wanted us to have that picture again, and to be able to see that map and to imagine coloring in all the countries, and to be able to see how many people are really connected to this work, because it's sometimes, I think, easy to think about us, right? You can name the people. If we're going to have a thing, you can name the people who are likely to show up. And we choose to actively participate in this international community in this way. But that doesn't mean that there aren't so many other people out there in the world who have been touched by this work, who are working this way, who are making impact. And if we don't have a way to keep that visible, it's easy to forget. So when I looked at the task and realized how big it was, I opened a bottle of wine and started into the Excel spreadsheets on a Saturday night. It was fun times at my house. It was a good task to do. My daughter had a friend sleeping over, so they didn't want me anywhere around them anyway. So it kept me out of their hair. But it did really reconnect me with, this is the goal, this is the vision. And there is in our documents, there's a medicine wheel of genuine contact that a group of people did in preparation for the co-ownership model happening. And one of those goals was that by 2010, because that was 2005 or 2006 that we were doing that by 2010, that genuine contact would be in 100 countries worldwide. And that there would be at least 50 organizations operating as genuine contact organizations intentionally by that point. And the only way that we can know if we're coming close to meeting those numbers is if we're actually talking about them. So some of my future story is about achieving those goals and being visible and being proud and knowing that we are, each of us, as we commit to working this way in the world, making that difference that we know is possible. And I feel like so much energy and effort and conversation and meetings and whatever it goes into sort of like coming internally into this Genuine Contact organization. But my future story is about also now stepping out and showing up visibly and meaningfully in the world. One of the ways that I was thinking about that last night, it was last night. Last night, Jessica and I, every night we read stories together, snuggle, and we read whatever we're reading. And we're in my room, and Jessica grabbed a book because it caught her eye because it was the biggest book on my bookshelf. And she's like, "What is this?" And she's like, "I can't even hardly lift it." And it was the Change Handbook. And so I flipped it open and I said, "Just read this line here." And she's like, "Grandma is in a book?" And then I pulled 4 or 5 more books off the shelf and did the same thing. And the last one was a book that's in German. And I handed it to her. I said, "Now read this one." And I said nothing. She's like struggling. And she finally looks at me. She's like, "This is not in English." Took her 4 or 5 words before she figured that out, but she did eventually. But that's the like childlike joy and playfulness of this growth that I want. Like that, the fun of pulling books off the shelf and seeing the names of people you know and the way that they're spreading this good work out into the world. That is my future story. I don't just want part of a shelf in my bookcase full of those books. I want a whole bookcase full of those books. So that's my future story. And now I will pass it on to Awar for your addition.
Thank you, Rachel. That's a great story. And I have a story that is, I think, yeah, I know it's about the future, but it's also about the present, what is happening right now, because I'm leading one of those Genuine Contact organizations right now. And we have worked with the Genuine Contact program since it started, because I was the chair when it started. I took on that role because I really wanted to. I think it was like I needed to do this, have this experience all by myself, to see that it was possible, to see. I mean, I've been teaching this for so many years to others. And during that time, I haven't been the leader of an organization itself. So I could only just say what I've heard from others. And then I think I wanted that experience just to know for true, to have my own stories of how it works. And it works. And a leader is never alone, Rachel. They aren't. I have this group of people around me, and they are so supporting the work that I do. And I know if I hadn't used whole person process facilitation and the Genuine Contact approach, I'm not sure I could have created that team, that group of people that are friends, and we are friends. It doesn't mean that we go to each other's houses at Saturday night, or that we constantly sit in each other's laps or anything. But it means that we are close enough to be true to each other, that we can talk about difficult things, also personal difficult things, and we can support each other in that. It doesn't mean that life is only sunshine. We have really tough decisions to make. We step on people's toes, they get angry, upset, and they you have no idea how many people in a small area like this are fighting with their neighbors. It's constant. It's like being in a sandbox, and Yeah. And when you step into that mix, when you step into that and want to cross their land, then you get that into the middle of that fight. So we have a lot of these difficult things to handle, and still we succeed. And I think that the greatest part is the feedback I get from this team about how we work together. And I mean, some have said that it's so important to come to these meetings, so I prioritize them before others every time. Another said, I have never learned so much in all the organizations I've been part of before, and even when I've been in the leadership team. I never learned, I never felt so included. I never felt such an open culture. And now in December, in 3 weeks from now, we are going to have a 2-day conference. It's going to be about extraordinary leadership combined with whole person process facilitation. And it's really designed for this group because they already know whole person process. They just need to know why and the basics of it. And I think that this is like it's a sign, or it's really what you call it, a receipt for that this is possible, and what it creates. It has not been without struggle on my side, because I've grown up with a different kind of leadership, a different view of what leadership is, and I've had to change a lot within myself. But it's an extraordinary experience to have this, and it shows that those tools and the methods that we have in the program is really, they are really working. And it's also important, I think, because sometimes we talk so much about what we should do, or how it should be, or what kind of culture we want in an organization, and we say, okay, so let's be this way or let's be that way. But if you don't have this method or tool to hang on to when you come into the daily grind, then you're lost again. Then it's so easy to go back to your old patterns. And I think that sometimes we sort of lose the sight of our own program, of our own tools. And so I'm really happy that we are using them more now again, because it's a long time since we did a diagnosis last time. I did one very shortly, I think in 2005, when I was doing my master's, and with a small group of people, and now it's a possibility for many people. And so I think it's good to remember that we have these great tools, and they work. They work also for us, so of course we will be successful. So with that story about leadership and what I see as the future of a new leadership paradigm is, I send the object back to Mari. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Eva. My story for the future is one of beautiful matches of the Genuine Contact organization finding a structure both for leadership, for membership, for the different levels of engagement, that is powerful and open at the same time, where there is balance, energetic, where it's energetically balanced. So there is something called the drama triangle from transaction analysis, and there one looks at on the kind of relationship that two people have. Is it like two adults meeting, or is it one going into parent mode and the other one going to child mode, or both meeting on the parental or both on the child level? And somehow I'm just drawn to say the perspective of this organization is just giving to me material and caring and community and belonging and all of that, and there's not much giving back. That's like a child-parent relationship, and I look forward to having a real mature members saying, well, this is what I want from this organization, I love paying for it, and you're doing a great job, or no, there's something missing, and there's a healthy challenging each other. So for this organization to grow in such a way, and then to commune with other companies, other organizations that are playing on the larger organizational development field. And I'm looking at making a connection. I know Rachel knows about that already quite a bit. Thomas knows about that. I would love to create a connection between the Barrett Values Center with CTT and the Culture and Transformation Tools and the Genuine Contact approach. For me, I'm combining them in my work, and to me they fit beautifully together, and I have like this bigger vision. I'm going to work on that for the next months now, to kind of weave together these threads, because it just seems that both fields, both intentions, both organizations have the potential to enhance each other enormously. And that's just what I see, and they can very well be other organizations out there that when we get together at the right moment, it's like, wow, there you are, wow, gorgeous. And recently I wrote an email and I signed it with Marai, self-nominated Genuine Contact Ambassador. And that's how I feel. I love taking that role of creating these, contributing to creating those kind of strategic alliances. And I feel a different self-esteem now. It's like, yes, this is, and that will, I'm sure I will really grow through this process that we're going through right now, to have it on our own organization and to see where it leads us to, and to also be able to say, we walk our talk, and not feel out of integrity, which I did for a while. And now I'm back to, wow, yes, I can be proud in a balanced way, to say, yeah, there's something really, really precious here, and not just in terms of big intentions, but it also in terms of great execution. Those go together. That said, our story sharing circle is coming to a close now. I feel like, no, I'm gonna miss you. Soon I'm gonna be on my own here in my living room. But it gives me space to create dinner, which is also good. So as our closure, in a moment, I will pass the talking object to my left, to Ava, so that we all have an opportunity to make a closing comment for this gathering today, and to say or sing or dance or whatever we are called to do, so that we feel complete with this meeting. So Ava, I pass, and now I'm going back to my genuine contact talking object. I pass this over to you.
Thank you. It's I could have brought it myself because I have one in my bedroom. It's hanging there on the wall, and underneath it is a sign that Aaron also did that says love, and together with 2 of Laura's paintings. So it's great. So I have the whole family in my bedroom. I think, oh, that's so funny. Oh. Might be because I happened once to stay in Aaron's bedroom when I was in Raleigh, and then I had to feed his lizards together with Birgit. And there was one of those crickets. It went out, so we couldn't find it, and it was sitting all around in the house and playing. And we tried to get it out of the house. Finally, we found it down in the kitchen, I think. Yeah, there are so many of these stories. Anyway, I'm very happy to be with you today, and I'm also very happy for the meeting tomorrow, where I prepare for that today, where we will do the diagnosis. And then to send out the report, and then to go on with a process that is quite quick. And so we can get some speed to get things moving, because I think that's really what is needed at times too. So yeah, thank you for today. Thank you for the stories, and it's been great to listen to them. To listen to many of them from another view and from other perspectives. So I send the bells or the object over to Rachel.
Thank you. Picking it up. I'm glad we did today. A few weeks ago, Awar and I met to kind of have a very quick call about a design. And as I was listening to her ideas, I thought, ooh, our community likes to talk. We better give them the space to do that. And so I'm so glad that you took on that suggestion, and that Mariah then were willing to facilitate it. I love the way that this got co-created. Awar came to a meeting with I would really like to do an organizational assessment because we haven't done one in a while and it feels like time, and I'm willing to lead that. And I came to that same meeting saying what we really need to do is refresh this strategic plan that so many people put their passion and time and energy into, and then it got put on a shelf. And that's not walking our talk. And so to do a strategic plan refresh, which is something that I like to do, and it's work that we do through DALAR quite often. And the timing of all of this has been a little bit hilarious, because we've had on our books since July, I think, to do a strategic planning workshop right now. So it's like my whole world is about strategic planning at this moment, is how it feels. And how this all came to be and how it got nestled together in a way that just flows and feels good and collaborative, and is exactly the way that I experience genuine contact organizations functioning when they're functioning in their best capacity. Everybody's passions showed up, they fit together well to create this beautiful plan, and now we're making it happen. And I love that. So I'm leaving today feeling like it's wonderful to have this next set of stories. And I can imagine one of the things I discovered this week is that story sharing from the 10th anniversary wasn't accessible to anyone. So I fixed that and it's available on the YouTube channel now. And I imagine this one next to it and them being linked to each other so that we have these like chapters of this storybook that we're writing together, all together. And then to know that there are already at least the frameworks for the chapters to come feels really good and exciting for me, and like we're nestling this into something that's big and important. So I look forward to tomorrow's meeting and also to the processes that will start to happen around the strategic plan refresh in a couple of weeks too. And with that, I will pass it on. I think, Christiana, it's over to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much for preparing this and for co-creating these meetings. After having heard your story about the bookshelf, Rachel, I have to tell you one other little story, because I received an email in these days letting me know that one of Birgit's books has reached China. So last year, and it's standing there on the shelf now, I think, or lying on the table. Because last year I offered a little workshop to some colleagues, and I introduced the medicine wheel tool, and one of these, well, he's not actually a colleague, he's a line manager at Lufthansa, and he was really impressed. But now he left for China for a joint venture of two flight companies, airlines. And he said that the medicine wheel tool is on his desk for daily reflection. And well, the book is there. And I think in the next days he will send me a translation, because I gave him the medicine wheel tool with some questions and he will translate it. So we will have a Chinese chapter on our Google Drive. Yeah, thank you.
I think I will pick the up, right?
Sorry, I'm not. Yes.
No problem. Thank you so much for sharing both painful stories, heartfelt stories, stories from future. I can't be with you tomorrow. I know that you will have a great meeting, and I really look forward for what will come out from that meeting and also the process in the coming weeks and months. Yeah, saying that, thank you very much to all of you, and thanks to you, Marai, for facilitating. Thank you so much. And I will pass the object over to Marai.
Thank you, Anders. Beautiful. Wow. Lots to integrate, at least for me, and to digest. I also look very much forward to tomorrow's meeting, and it feels awesome to have this triangle right now, and in terms of leadership for this process. And it's a starting point. It's not that this is going to be the next leadership and no one else is going to come. I hope there's going to be many more people join in different roles, and to have, yeah, the three of us, it feels strong and diverse and loving and caring, and there's a lot of knowledge there. So it's really enormous trust into this process. I needed a reminder from Elizabeth, who, when she shared her Zoom access with me, said, and remember, whoever comes are the right people. It doesn't matter like how many or how few or how many there are. I noticed that there was a time when I thought, oh my God, now we're going to just be like 6 people or so for the story sharing. And I would so love to have more people come and a variety, and isn't it necessary that more people hear this from each other and yeah, bring in their perspective. And then I stepped into this perspective of grit and energy, and trusting that it's not only us being impacted by this, but in us sharing and listening, this also in some mysterious way goes out in the larger field. And what we feel, the grief that we feel, that we acknowledge, and the intentions that we set, don't stay just with us, but also have an effect on the larger field. At least that's how I see it. And I'm curious to watch what that's going to be, how that's going to show up. I'm going to ring my bell once to end our meeting. Thank you so much for having been here. Until tomorrow or until next time when we meet. Have a beautiful rest of the day and a beautiful long day to Rachel. It's just starting.